This is what we have to work with. So back to my research. That's why I'm doing this on the internet, in short. The internet is where everything is happening. Not everything, but a lot of stuff. And I think it's a place to research which is useful, if not the place to research. However, there's some ethical considerations that come with that. Language. Trans people like language which is nice. I like language which is nice. I like people to be nice about me and to listen, and not me to call me all kinds of strange things. People have called me on an NHS video, which is up on the internet. He looks very pretty as a girl. That kind of comment, lots of fun. People who think they're being supportive, but they're not. And I like people making mistakes and listening, and that's great, but the important thing is the listening. And much as I'm a trans woman, I can't even begin to understand every trans experience, and hence the research. I should be listening to people and respecting where people are coming from, even if it's not where I'm coming from. In addition to that, use the right pronouns. People will usually tell you what pronouns they want to use, and we can use that. Great. But there's some more important problems with the internet, in that people don't necessarily expect a researcher to turn up and read everything they have to say, then write about it and publish it in a journal somewhere. The first point I'd like to make is that anything I get published I will make no money from, because unfortunately that's how academia works. If you ever read a journal article, the writer has not been paid for it. If they're in China, they have to pay for the privilege of having it published, which is great. I was talking with a fellow student about that. But there's this fantastic system in place where you need to be published if you want an academic career. So there are all these companies that say, please publish in my journal. I'm not going to pay you, but if you want to be published, you can get a job. And then they sell the journal for vast amounts of money to universities. Anyway, the point is I'm not planning to make money off people's experiences. I think that would be bad. I'm still possibly using what people have said, which is why I think it's important, if you're going to study an online community, you do one of two things. Either, if it's a private community that you have to log into to get into and speak to people, you tell people what you're doing. You let people know, you give people the opportunity to opt out. The other potential approach is that used on places like GenderFork. GenderFork has a huge amount of people contributing. You're never going to find them all. If you make a statement in 2010, you're never going to know what people in 2009 think about you looking at their comments. However, there's a great advantage in that people have already anonymised themselves. And so I feel quite strongly you should take a different approach, which is recognising that people have already anonymised themselves and acknowledging them as authors of their material. It's not necessarily going to be outing people. If someone's posting as gendergirl33, you're not telling anything about them. If they're posting as Juho Green from Finland, you probably want to think about not publishing that as such and anonymising it. But I think it's about sensitivity to whatever medium you're researching in. Finally, with a focus group, I take a completely different approach. If I'm getting a bunch of people in the room, talking to them, I believe it's really important to anonymise everything about their name, because I want to know their actual names. And I don't want someone reading my paper and then going out and finding everyone who's been in my research and going, oh, I know all about you. Because the important difference with things like GenderFork is if I quote anyone from it in research, all that someone needs to do is copy what they've written and plug it into a search engine and they found them. Anything that's on the internet, you can see, as long as it's in an open area. And it's kind of a problem and something people need to bear in mind. And so, that pretty much draws to a conclusion. Finally, there might be time for questions and lunch. There is. This is fantastic. So I want to share with you some final thoughts. One is that something I hope to run through this whole thing is that a lot of academics like talking about trans people without necessarily talking to us or listening to what we have to say when they do talk to us. And I think it's quite important to hold academics to account and say, well, actually you said X or Y, but have you considered Z? Or did you listen to the fact that they were actually saying A and B? I think this is fairly important, and I think we can do it by writing angry letters, by saying, hold on, this conference is offensive, maybe we should hold a protest. And by, for that matter, having our own events and saying, hey, this is how it goes. I think academics should account for gender pluralism. I think it's really, really important. Not everyone fits into easy categories, and that's something we should hold people to account for as well. And academics need to respect trans identities. But more importantly, trans academia needs trans academics. The real difference came when people like Sandy Stone, Kate Bornstein, Namaste, I don't know her first name, I've forgotten. I think about everyone.
Vivian.
Yeah, thank you, wonderful people. I think about everyone now in terms of names and the date with which they published something. It's something academia does to you. And Leslie Feinberg, all these wonderful people who publish wonderful things, pretty much kick-started feminists such as Sally Hines, and I don't know Morelli's first name again, actually looking at stuff from a trans perspective. Yes, thank you. So, more trans academics, people who know the community, people who understand what's going on, and cis academics who have been involved in trans community or prepared to involve themselves in trans community. We need people who know what they're talking about. But also, this doesn't have to be people within the official academic structures. I happen to have done a master's degree in social research and now I'm doing a PhD, and that's all very well and good for me. But it is possible to be an independent researcher. It's not easy, but if you spend huge amounts of time reading about the literature of the field, reading about research techniques, talking to academics, trying to sneak your way into conferences and events, it is possible to do independent research, and I think we need more of that. So those are my thoughts. It is not quite 25 past 12, and our next official session is at 1, meaning if you want to get lunch, please get lunch. If you want to stay here and ask me questions, and I will stop by 22, so we actually all get a chance to eat something. Please ask me questions. Yeah. Or talk to each other.